Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, I want to present to you my topic of communication. But first, let's just talk about communication in general. What is communication? Communication is the sending and receiving of information, which can be one-on-one, in a group, or through communicational devices. It is a powerful and important skill that requires an appropriate amount of time for one to actually master it. So, my topic of communication is the nonverbal communication through dance, which is an intriguing and a topic that spans both humans and animals. My aim is to highlight the powerful ways in which movement serves as a medium for conveying messages, emotion, and social roles in both realms. Firstly, I will talk about the humans' dance traditions. Then I will move on to animal dance-like behaviors. And finally, I will talk about a conclusion, just give you a brief summary about what I talked about again. Now, let's talk about the dance. Every culture has their own traditional dance, which is not just a form of art, it is something more. It's a special way of communicating. Moreover, there's always a special meaning behind one or another dance. For example, hopak, which you can see on the screen right now. This is a Ukrainian traditional dance, which came from Zaporozhian Kazakh, which was created to celebrate the victory, which has a real long history and a powerful meaning behind it. Many dances in general were created to celebrate something, for example, weddings, harvest, or New Year. These dances define roles and convey messages without speaking a single word, maintaining social orders and reinforcing cultural values. But let's just talk about dance in general. The nowadays dance. The dance in humans is a powerful tool, again, for conveying messages and emotions. It can express a variety of feelings, even when the music is neutral. This is achieved through embodied cognition, where dancers utilize their whole bodies to manifest emotions. Quick, expansive movements usually indicate happiness, for example, jazz or hip hop, and harmonize. More slow movements can express sadness, for example, contemporary dance. This profound interaction between the dancer and the observer activates both cognition and sensory motor areas of the brain. But what many people might not know is that animals also use dance-like behaviors to communicate with each other in a variety of fascinating and sophisticated ways. I personally decided to use an example of honeybees because of their amazing communication skills, but there are many more animals that also use dance-like movements to communicate. The first example will be the male mannequin bird, which engage in intricate dance routines and acrobatics to attract females, showcasing their agility and strength. Another example will be fiddler crabs. They use synchronized claw wearing to attract females and intimidating rivals. While wolves perform coordinated dances to strengthen pack unity and during courtship. This example illustrates the universal use of dance-like behaviors in the animal kingdom, demonstrating how movement serves as a powerful and effective means of nonverbal communication, not only in humans but also across other species. Now let's just sum up everything really quick. The journey to the world of dance, both humans and animals, has shown us the universal principles that govern nonverbal communication. From detailed and emotion-laden movements of human dancers to the precise and purposeful legal dance of honeybees, we see a remarkable convergence in how movement can convey complex information and emotions in general. Now, thank you so much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine waking up each day and stepping into a world where two cultures intersect. A place where you can switch between languages as effortlessly as flipping a switch, yet constantly feel like you belong to neither. This has been my reality growing up into two distinct cultures, a journey as enriching as it is complex. This duality, this chameleon-like existence, beautifully enriches my experience but also places me at the crossroads of cultural miscommunication. Let me share a personal anecdote. Humor, for example, is a wonderful yet challenging aspect of this duality. I often make jokes in my mother tongue that fall flat when translated into German. The logic of these jokes, while transferable, doesn't always obtain the intended response. I find myself trying to translate everyday saying from one language to another, only to be met with laughter from my parents or confusion from my German friends. This underscores a critical point. What resonates deeply in one culture can be lost or misunderstood in another. These everyday miscommunication can make one feel like an outsider, never fully at home in either culture. Take, for example, the English saying, "It's raining cats and dogs." If you were to translate it literally into German, "Es regnet Katzen und Hunde," you'd likely be met with bewildered looks. The German equivalent would be "Es regnet in Strömen," which directly translated to "It's raining in streams." Both expression describes heavy rain, but in entirely different, culturally specific ways. Misunderstanding also occur with phrases that sound similar but mean different things. For instance, the English phrase "to break the ice" translated directly to "das Eisbrechen" in German and maintains the same meaning, overcoming initial social awkwardness. However, not all expressions translate this smoothly. The English phrase "to pull someone's leg," meaning to tease someone, translates directly to German "jemanden das Bein ziehen." In German, which makes no sense. Instead, Germans would say "jemanden auf den Arm nehmen," which translates to "take someone on the arm." These examples are amusing, but they also highlight a deeper issue in intercultural communication. In my artwork, I explore these themes of cultural intersection. One piece is particularly features clouds forming light paths towards the sun. The clouds are mostly white with pigments of purple, orange, yellow, and pink, symbolizing culture and therefore language. Butterflies represent humankind in their diversity, flying towards the sun, some resting on the clouds. These butterflies, like us, are diverse yet share common ground. This piece speaks to the importance of openness and acceptance of cultural diversity, highlighting that no one should feel out of place in our shared journey. The literature on cultural dimensions such as Hofstede's model provides a framework for understanding these dynamics. Hofstede identifies 6 dimensions that illustrates how culture differ: power, distance, uncertainty, avoidance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, long-term versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. These dimensions help us grasp why certain behaviors and communication styles prevail in different cultures. For instance, in Germany, a country with low power distance and high individualism, the communication style is direct and explicit. In contrast, high context cultures, much of communication is implicit. This divergence often led to misunderstanding. This brings me to the importance of intercultural communication within a multicultural society like Germany. We live in an era of unprecedented cultural diversity, where daily interactions span a multitude of cultural backgrounds. Understanding and navigating this diversity is crucial. It's not just about speaking the same language, but understanding the cultural context that shapes how we communicate. Offset research reminds us that cultural miscommunication often stems from deeper societal norms and values. These miscommunications aren't just humorous and frustrating. They can have real-world implications, affecting everything from workplace dynamics to social integration. By fostering an environment of cultural sensitivity and awareness, we can bridge these gaps. My experience and my art underscore a simple yet profound truth. Embracing cultural diversity enriches our lives. The colorful clouds and butterflies in my painting are a metaphor for potential to coexist harmoniously despite our differences. We must strive to create spaces where cultural identities are not just tolerated but celebrated. In conclusion, the path toward effective intercultural communication is paved with empathy, awareness, and willingness to learn. Let us embrace the diversity around us, recognize the beauty in our differences, and work towards a society where everyone feels at home. Thank you.
Let's talk about misunderstandings in transcultural and nonverbal communication. So first of all, why have I chosen this topic? We live in a multicultural world where it's not very uncommon for us to run into people who do not share our language. So we have to rely on nonverbal cues and body language to communicate. That may lead to some misunderstandings down the line. So my goal is to show you why it is important to look into cultural awareness and why it may be beneficial to learn more about cultures. But let's start with the basics. What exactly is communication? Communication can be defined as who shares what, in which way, with whom. We have a sender, we have a message, a channel, and a receiver. And nonverbal communication, on the other hand, is everything that is not tied to words. So tonation, or facial expression, body language, or even gestures. Depending on the study used, only about 7 to 30% of information is conveyed via words in a conversation. So we have to really rely on body language. But what exactly has that to do with culture now? A study by Rashad from 2002 suggests that every culture has its own set of profiles, so-called EPA profiles, which means that every culture has its own set of body language cues. Every EPA profile consists of a mixture of strong or weak, active or inactive, or good or bad cues. A good, strong, and active cue, for example, is laughing. So what exactly does that mean now? If every culture has its own mixture of cues and every culture has its own meaning of cues, misunderstandings will occur on a regular basis. So we really have to look into cultural awareness. But what exactly is cultural awareness now? Let's take a step back. Who shares what? In which way? With whom? In which way is our keyword here, because this is nonverbal communication. And if the meaning of our nonverbal cues do not align with the meaning of nonverbal cues of another culture, misunderstandings will occur, and the meaning is lost. Communication is impossible, or at least very hard. Let me give you some examples how those cues may occur. First of all, we have space and proximity. Latin Americans, for example, like to be very near while talking to each other, while Americans like to have their distance. Then they're sitting. In the Middle East, it is seen as an insult to show your salts to someone while sitting, and it is very possible that it occurs when you sit with your legs crossed above your knee. In Germany, for example, we sit with our legs apart, but on the ground, whereas in Italy, they may sit with their legs crossed. Then there's how we show agreement or disagreement. In Germany, we nod if you agree. In Greek, for example, it is like one nod upwards to agree. And if we talk to them and it's like, yeah, you agree, right? What we basically say is yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, which may lead to some sort of misunderstanding. Then there are handshakes. In Germany, we like our handshakes short-lasting and firm. In the Middle East, they're also firm but long-lasting and may involve touching another's forearm. And in Japan, they don't really do handshakes because a firm handshake is seen as some sort of dispute, some sort of aggressiveness. Speaking of aggressiveness, our volume of speaking. In Germany, a loud voice, a high volume, as a sign of self-confidence and dominance. But in Japan, for example, a loud voice may cause distress because it is seen as a dispute. And now, my favorite cue, eye contact. In Germany, we like to keep eye contact, whereas in the Middle East, they also keep eye contact, but longer, very extensively. But in Africa and Japan, for example, eye contact is avoided. In Africa, avoiding eye contact is a sign of submission and hierarchy. So if you stare at someone, it shows that you think you're at a higher hierarchy rank, which may cause some issues, especially if breaking eye contact in our culture means lying. Those are just some examples of how misunderstandings may occur, but I guess that's it for now. There's not a lot of time, so move forward.
When two people communicate, they exchange information, ideas, or feelings, typically through a dialogue. While much of communication research has focused on language and speech, there's another universal form of communication that I would like to focus on. So when two people communicate with each other, they do this through dialogue. But what happens on a bigger scale? What happens when a lot of people share this belief or share this idea that can be expressed through a song? All of a sudden, thousands of people will be able to identify with this certain art form and this artwork, and then share an identity together. And so, culturally, music embodies the essence of someone's identity in a community, heritage, or tradition. It serves as an archive, as collective memory and experiences, preserving stories and customs through generations. Music shapes our everyday lives, and you know this. You listen to it on your way to work, in a bar, at a club, or just when you share a song with a friend and then you bond over that. And so I would like to play you a song that I wrote for this seminar. And what I did with the song was I tried to focus on a feeling that a lot of people could relate to, and then share ideas or share an identity through this song. So I'm going to play it for you and actually perform it live because I think it will be easier for you to get the vibe of the song. How many times did I cry about you and I? How many nights have I waited for you? How many lies, how many truths, you and I, we were great once upon a time. And I was loyal to you. Oh, you should have treated me royal too. So I'm asking you nice, how many times? Was it one? Was it two? Was it five? How many times did she love you like I did? Can't you see that it's you I miss? Okay, and maybe you got the lyrics, maybe you got a sense of what that song was trying to convey, what kind of message it was trying to convey. But now think about you only speaking French and Spanish, and you're not able to understand English. Would you have still got what the song was trying to convey with you? You could answer yes, you could answer no, but in the case you answer yes, this might explain why music is often not just understood, but felt. For example, listening to a French song can be enjoyable even if you don't understand a word of the language, as the rhythm and melody still evoke emotions. Think back to the song I just played for you. Did it evoke feelings of melancholy, sadness, or hurt? The tonality, pronunciation, melody, and tempo determines whether the lyrics convey sadness, happiness, passion, etc. These emotions are universally felt, making music a bridge between cultures and people. And yeah, music can articulate collective grievance, and this would be maybe one emotion that people could then connect with over that song. And many people feel often embarrassed to be the first to confess their feelings, so maybe writing a song where you put your emotions into lyrics could be the best communication for you.
Good morning to everybody listening. In my 5 minutes, I will talk to you about a feature of language that is often overlooked: the individual language. When using this expression, I consider every part of spoken language and body language that a person does not because it has a meaning given by society, as nodding, for example, would have, but because it is an individual piece. For the sake of this presentation, these will be abbreviated with ILP, meaning individual language piece. To explore this topic, I knew I wanted to do an experiment. I would go more into the planning process behind the project, but 5 minutes are not enough for that. Let us jump to the decisions. Due to my general interest in all production of audio, I decided that the most authentic way for me to collect results would be to create an audio log. The log contains 5 entries, now that it is finished, talking about the general idea, planning, personal results, results from others, and research. The experiment itself was as simple as it was strange to perform. Through what I perceive myself and what I've been told in the past, I picked out 3 ILPs. For one singular day, I would try to change my behavior in these 3 chosen aspects and see how it feels for me to act this way, and how recognizable the changes would be to my family, all of whom unconsciously know how I usually act. The results of the experiment were unexpected. My 3 ILPs that I changed, being my speed and accent of speech, the way I hold my arms while walking, and my way of sitting, did not get recognized by my family at all until I told them what I had been doing the day after. For myself, the seemingly most impactful ILP, the speaking, was the easiest to change, while the seemingly least impactful one, the way of walking, was very difficult to actually perform. In my project, the question came during the experiment instead of preceding it. If one were to try and change their ILPs, as I did, but for a way longer period of time, would they be able to change them permanently? And thus, research started. The research was by far the most frustrating part of my project. It felt impossible to find any literature which actually discusses the given question or even gives ideas. In the end, I found the article, "How Can We Change Our Habits If We Don't Talk About Them?" written by Roger Manty and Brand C. Talbot. As the title indicates, the text itself is about general habits, not about language, but I was able to adapt some points. While I couldn't finally answer the question, some ideas were made. Thus, our ILPs are a part of our language because they are accepted. We use them to not have to focus on our exact behavior all the time, while we know that people will not look at us strangely for using them. Due to this, changing ILPs could become way more difficult, as an unconscious fear of being separated from society makes it harder. This would also explain my difficulties in changing the least impactful ILP, as it is the only one that I have not kept an eye on in public before. So the possible answers I could give for now are as follows. Either one cannot change their habits due to them being an accepted way of acting, which is also part of our DNA, as would be indicated by some of my own ILPs being the same as from ancestors whom I never even knew. The other option is that it is possible to change your ILPs, given enough time and the feeling of being accepted in your new behavior. In the end, the question was left open though, and there's a lot of interest in further research in the future. Thank you all for your attention.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Noor, and I'm here to present to you my project, which I worked on throughout this semester. My talk is divided into 3 main parts. I'll start by telling you what my individual project entails. Then I want to illustrate to you what my process looked like. And finally, I'll be looking at the skills I've gained while working on this project. So what exactly is my individual project about? As a future teacher and educator, I'm extremely interested in what makes delivering information easier, more engaging, and most importantly, how communication affects students. I decided to take this semester as an opportunity to experiment with different kinds of communication techniques and create what I call a comprehensive guide to communication. My comprehensive guide to communication is a series of 3 videos with differing points of focus that use different communication techniques and tools. The first video in my guide is on public speaking. The video is more of an interactive form of the classic educational video. My aim was to create a framework of self-assessment so that speakers can optimize their performance and reflect on how certain actions may affect their listeners. This requires the viewers to actively think about their performance and to evaluate their skills, rather than passively noting what should ideally be done. I also included some practical tips and tools to improve one's public speaking skills for any upcoming events. My second video is a guide to intercultural communication for professionals in the business world. Here, I utilized some video footage from movies to illustrate mistakes in intercultural communication. The use of video here was fitting as the mistakes were made clear either through the comments or actions of the other actors involved. And finally, I decided to include a guide on conflict management for parents and teachers, as communication is key when it comes to dealing with conflict. Since parents and teachers often find themselves caught in intergenerational conflict with young people, I found it helpful to compile all sorts of information on management styles, as well as tips to first de-escalate and secondly solve the conflict. Let's now turn to the question, what did my creative process look like? One of my most important key takeaways is the fact that the creative process is time-intensive and that enough time is required to be able to adjust your workflow according to your revisions, as the creative process is rather cyclical than linear. I started my process at the beginning of the semester with a specific target and idea in mind. After researching it and trying to work on it, I realized that the idea only sounded good on paper and needed revision. After revising my plan and continuously changing minor details throughout the semester, I brought everything together to form the bigger picture and create the videos. Then came the voiceover part, and to complete my guide, the final editing and cutting of the videos. So far, we've looked at what my project was and what my process looked like. Now, I'd like to focus on what I have gained by working on this project and creating my guide. Working on all 3 videos gave me the possibility to improve my communicative skills, as I had to adapt each video to my target audience. I found it a great opportunity to compile some of the things I've learned throughout the semester and engage with the material in a different way. While creating the videos, I noticed what a difference changing the tone of your voice makes, which had to become a focal point for me given that the videos relied entirely on my audio delivery. Even though it was challenging to work on those videos at times, I enjoyed the process very much and I'm quite happy with the result. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed my talk as much as I enjoyed working on my videos this semester.